Well, I guess it would be good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at in the world. Welcome to Financial Friday. I'll be your host, Nick Palavita, and we have a couple special guests for this hour on Financial Friday. John Power, who's a CPA out of North Dakota, has joined us. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Right. And so we'll be discussing, obviously with CPAs, we'll be discussing tax related issues, tax plans, and things that you can do. We also have Matthew Jennings. Matthew is also a enrolled agent, right, Matthew?
Yes.
Okay. And you're joining us out of what city today?
I'm in Las Vegas today.
Las Vegas today. Yes. I noticed that you do tend to bounce around, and I wasn't sure if you're beaming in from Florida or Las Vegas or where the heck you're beaming in from. So, well, with that, okay, we've passed, I guess, the July 15th tax deadline, and we're faced with this thing called coronavirus. So I'm not really sure what people are going to be doing, but what I'm going to be doing is adding up another guest to our list. There we go. Tom Snell, who is an attorney and does benefits in Sanford, North Carolina. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you, Nick. Appreciate you having me back on again.
All right. Now, the reason I say that, I just want to see if your microphone works.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, normally be welcome to the program, but seeing that the microphone works. Well, we just passed a deadline, July 15th, and we're also in the midst of coronavirus. John, since you're a CPA, tell us what are your clients doing right now about their taxes and their financial situation?
Up here we've been by and large pretty lucky. The Midwest hasn't had a large number of cases. We are seeing a little bit of a spike in the last couple of weeks. So for most businesses, it hasn't been too big of a deal. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, there's a lot of things everybody did differently, obviously, unless you're in a business like a restaurant or a dentist office and things like that. Obviously, those are impacted a great deal more because they just had to close.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So that they end up having serious problems. Tom, right. What do you see in your business right now? You do a lot of benefits, and are your clients having problems paying into their benefit structure, or are they purchasing new, I guess, their health benefits, or they just go, hey, we can't afford this anymore? What's going on right now in your department?
Most of our clients are keeping their benefits up for their employees. Most of them in the manufacturing arena right now are actually still working. They're doing some innovative things around shift work and how they lay out their break rooms and, how they, when and how they take their breaks. But most of them are working. So they're producing product. They're able to, pay for their benefits. I've got one client that has asked for some forbearance. Mm-hmm. And the carriers are willing to do that through the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
So they've been pretty accommodating. They've also the carriers have also been willing to allow employers to keep people on the benefit plan, even though they're not really working the required 30 hours a week. Mm-hmm. So even if people are on furlough or they've had to go to half shifts or alternating shifts or something, most employers are keeping their benefits in place.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Well, Matthew, you're in the great city of Las Vegas, and you're also an enrolled agent. So you work with clients and their taxes and their financial needs. What's going on right now with your clients? Are they having issues relating to this coronavirus and the financial finances, basically?
Fortunately for me, I have higher net worth clients that aren't affected as much, because at the end of the day, when you have, 10 million, 20 million, the butler and the maid are still working. And so you don't have those, huge, fluctuations to the point where, they're, very, very much concerned about, what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So it sounds like you're not really being affected very much about in terms of the coronavirus. Now, here's another stat I got earlier this week is that 1/3, at least in North Carolina, of the people are not paying their mortgages. In other words, they're basically forfeiting. That's a big number. John, do you see that up in North Dakota?
I don't think that to that level, but yeah, we're certainly, I've heard anecdotal evidence about that, where mortgage lenders are trying, in some cases, trying to work with lenders. Some of them, the programs they had in place, they would forbear for, say, 3 or 4 months, but then you had to make a lump sum payment. Well, that doesn't do any good.
Right.
It has to be something that gets added, tacked onto the back end of the mortgage, and
Right.
some are willing to do it and some aren't.
Yeah. See, think if it's tacked in back of the mortgage, things would be okay. But if they double up or triple up, or you've got to have it done by the end of the year, I think that's going to be a big problem.
Right.
And I don't know if there's any laws that would affect that right now, but logically thinking, if you just add it to the principal and tack it at the back, to me that would make sense. But I don't think I've seen nothing else have come down. Now, Tom, since you live in the great state of North Carolina, as 1/3 of the mortgages they're not paying them. Okay. Do you have any clients that are affected by that? Or
yeah, I don't. I've got some friends in the mortgage business, and they're primarily in the business of making new loans, and they are tonning it right now. They are so busy they can't hardly see straight. Interest rates down today below 3% for the first time in 50 years. People are, certainly, if you're unemployed, that's probably not an option to go and refinance, Nick. But if you still have a job or still have income, now's a great time to refinance or to buy property. So we're having a hard time keeping houses on the market around here.
Right. Yeah, and I've seen that. And Matthew, do the high net worth people have issues like that, or do they go into forbearance because, well, they can? Or do you see that happening, Matthew?
Well, we deal with some very, very interesting financial products. Some frozen cash value policies, which is basically an insurance wrap. And in an insurance wrap, you basically have all of the assets owned by an insurance policy. And and we call it the freeze because you can freeze the taxation. What we mean by that is that once those assets are in the policy, they're no longer subject to U.S. jurisdiction taxation and the reporting as well. There's no FBAR, there's no FACTA, and none of that other type of reporting. So when you're insulated from taxation, you can imagine having an extra 40 to 50% to work with. And so when you're working with, that much extra and an additional, income and cash flow, again, these, things come and go in situations like this, but they're not as affected as the rest of us.
Yeah, sounds to me you're discussing private placement life insurance, which is
yes, sir.
a very unique product. Which it's very, very interesting that a lot of people, when they go to school, first thing they don't study in high school is private placement life. It's like, forget it, But international private placement life is also a little bit above the comprehension of most people, so they actually don't get involved very much in that. John, have you got involved up in North Dakota? Because I know South Dakota had the South Dakota Trust that was very popular because it basically forgave the rule against perpetuity. So everybody ran to South Dakota to set up their trust. Do you run into that in the area of North Dakota? Do they get involved in planning, such as using things like private placement life or South Dakota Trust?
Oh, sure. That's a significant part of my practice. Asset protection, certainly tax planning is a big part of what I do. And we look at a variety of things. Yeah, South Dakota is one of the states that, basically allows dynasty trusts, and there's no state income tax. So yeah, there's a number of people that we look at things like that. I've never done a private placement. I'm familiar with it. I've never done one, but like you said, that's not something that you're going to do for most people. But it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. So we'll run to the South. Tom Snell, Tom, have you ever looked into private placement life or dynasty trust for your clients?
Yeah, no dynasty trust. We've looked at some unique life products involving long-term care or cash value policies for key man policies. You've given me some homework to do to study up on private placements. I love any type of product that I can offer to a business owner to solve a problem. So I'll be doing my study this weekend.
Yeah, time to dig out the old private placement life manual, which is actually extremely hard to find. I don't know where Matthew digs it up, but the thing is, it's something that is very, very difficult to find, buried deeply into the Internal Revenue Code under Section 7702 of the Internal Revenue Code, which no one reads because I think promulgated back in 1989. It's been around for a long time. So, so John, since it sounds like you also get involved in some what I call sophisticated tax planning for your clients, what else do you see out there in terms of sophisticated tax planning that clients can do?
Charitable LLCs have been pretty popular. It's like anything else. Not every strategy works in every situation, but charitable LLCs have been a very common one. Looking at some premium financing of life insurance, sometimes to go along with those. Last time I was on, I mentioned that the IC disc. If you have the right kind of business, that's an extremely powerful tax loophole, if you will. And various credits. There's some the R&D credits. There's film financing credits. There's no lack of strategies. Weeding out the good from the bad is always a process, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you explain to our audience the difference between a credit and a deduction?
Well, a deduction is a subtraction from your taxable income. If you have $100,000 of taxable income and you get a $10,000 deduction for a retirement plan or whatever, your taxable income goes down to $90,000. A credit is applied directly against the amount of the tax liability. So generally, you would say that credits are more valuable than deductions. Not always the case, but generally that would be true.
Yeah, right. Yeah, usually I like the idea of credit because it comes back 100%, at least whatever the tax is. I mean, you can quantify that pretty good as opposed to the deduction. Well, it goes off the line. It depends what your tax level is, et cetera, et cetera. So the credits. So the thing is, there are some opportunities in shopping. It sounds to me, the shopping for credits. Now, what about opportunity zones? I've heard a lot about these things out there in the market space. I'm going to hit Tom since he's in the Great South. Someday we'll play golf again, Tom, but maybe we'll discuss opportunity zones. There's somebody who specializes in it that I know. I didn't bring him on today, but have you seen The Wonderful World of Oz or opportunity zones where you're at?
Yeah, in fact, I own a piece of property in an opportunity zone, and I hadn't figured out how to capitalize on it because you have to spend a certain amount of new capital improving your property in order to take advantage of the tax advantages, and then you've got to hold the property for a certain period of time. So, there are a lot of rules around it that do not make it seem as attractive in a smaller community like where I live in Sanford, North Carolina. I'm more of a big city opportunity where property values are a lot higher, and you may have a dilapidated building that somebody could come in and restore. And I see. It seems like it's a good thing. I haven't figured out how to personally take advantage of it. Sanford has, I think every community has an opportunity zone identified. But there was a lot of excitement around it. We had the accountants come in and hold community meetings around what it meant, and to try to build some development excitement around it. I haven't seen a whole lot. I have heard some people talking about trying to create funds or a separate corporation to go in and aggregate people's money, small amounts of money to go in and do something in these zones, and that's probably what's going to happen in our community.
Right. Yeah, Matthew, have you seen the opportunity zones in Las Vegas, or your clients look at the opportunity zones? I call it the wonderful world of Oz. Have you delved into that area at all, Matthew?
At first, I wasn't too interested in it until I attended a webinar on it, and from my understanding, is that basically the objective of it is to, if you have a capital gain, you basically going to invest that capital gain in the opportunity zone property. And as mentioned before, yeah, there are basically time limits that basically dictate how much of that will be exempt. You got 5, 7, and 10 years. I know if you have it in there 10 years, then it's totally exempt. So that's the objective. If you have a capital gain, let's just say $100,000 capital gain, you can you can basically exempt that if you invest that 100,000 into an opportunity zone property and let it stay there for 10 years. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I think it's a wonderful thing because there's really no limit to the amount of capital gains that can be exempt from that. So anyone that's really, real estate investor doing some long-term planning, in the real estate space, I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I see that Congress, sometimes they giveth and taketh away. They did that with the captive insurance companies. They were big, 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 and then they came back and they changed the rule and they made it bad, or not as good. Let's put it that way. There's still things that you can do, but right now I see opportunity zones. They made it a big opportunity. I just don't know how long they're going to keep it out there. So it's really hard to predict the future. So I just don't do that. Instead, I'll ask John to predict the future for me. John, in other words, I go past that buck because I'm going like, I don't know. John, where do you see the tax and financial industry going in the next 5 years? I'm supposed to look ahead 5 years from now and know where this industry is. Is this a good industry to be in? Should people bail out? Where do you see the industry going, the tax and financial industry, in the next 5 years?
Tell me what's going to happen in November. I think that's going to be the driving force.
You think politics has a lot to do with tax and finance?
Just a little bit.
Oh, okay. So the thing is, what you're saying, until after the election takes place, we don't know. Would that be a correct assessment? Right. So then I'll have to figure out where I get my pink slip. Tom, can you give us a motion for a more definite statement, counselor?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, you do? Good. Then you're the guy I want to talk to. What's going to happen?
Well, if the Democrats win, if you have wealth, your tax rate's going from 23 up to 40. I think if Trump ends up winning it again, I think we'll see a ramp up in the protest. I don't think it'll be focused around Black Lives Matter necessarily. I just think you'll have a lot more people coming out to just protest. So it'll become more of a law and order issue. I think that's probably what the president's going to run on, is, kind of getting things under control. So who knows? I agree with the other guest. I think the election is going to dictate a lot of what's going to happen.
You concur with our other counselor, John. So I need somebody who can really pull out a crystal ball, some young guy. Oh, Matthew, can you let us know what's going to happen in the next 5 years in the financial services industry and the tax industry? Where do you see this thing going?
Well, I've been told the tax law changes every time Congress meets. So it'll be surprising to see what they cook up next. But definitely, I predict that there will be some changes because of the liberal gifts that we were given in this past major change. So I see the estate tax, the unified credit. I see that coming back down to maybe 5 or maybe even less than that. Not really sure, but the government is broke. So
that could be a big problem. A big problem. And so we'll talk about it because we did have a huge amount of spending that took place recently. It looks like we have some more spending that's taking place, and the debt continues to increase. John, with all that, do you see taxes in the next 5 years going up or going down, no matter who's in office?
I don't see any possibility of taxes going down. I think it's most like, again, I agree with the others, especially if the Democrats get control of the Senate and the White House. I think it's almost for sure the taxes will go up. I agree with Matthew. I think the estate tax exemption and the unified credit is certainly going to be a hot item. It's very generous right now. Even at a much lower level, it was a very small number of estates that paid tax, but it could be a very substantial amount of money. Now at $12 million, give or take, it's a small percentage of estates that are taxable. So I think that's certainly going to be on the chopping block, and tax rates, if anything, we're going to go down. I think there'll be a lot of pressure to move the corporate tax rate back up. Mm-hmm. That was a fairly significant decrease. Individual rates, certainly on the top end, I think are going to be bumped up too.
Okay, Mr. Tom Snell. Okay, cash and money. All right, we're going to talk about money and finance. Okay, interest rates we know are at all-time low. As a matter of fact, trying to invest cash in CDs and fixed instruments really, really low. So let's imagine you're parked with tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. Where do you put your money today? And I know we have the investment show. For those who don't know it, it's Wednesday at 1 o'clock on IBM TV. But I figured, well, I'll ask Tom, put him on the spot. Where do people park their money today? Do we put it in the marketplace with 40 million people unemployed and 1/3 of the people, not paying their mortgages? Where do you invest today?
Well, I mean, I think cash is not necessarily a bad thing to have. A little significant liquidity right now is probably very helpful when the market is still going through a lot of gyrations. You can see 3 and 4, 5% swings in just about every stock that trades from day to day. Certainly over a week or two period. So there's still a lot of value stocks out there. The dividend aristocrats are coming back into vogue, and I would not hesitate to put some of my cash in the market right now. I'm not a big fan of the FANG. I think those stocks have run up high right now, but every time I say that, they go up another 8% or so. So,
right.
It's I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think holding some cash right now is a bad thing. I'd just probably put it in the bank.
Okay, Matthew, sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cash or money, where do people put their money today, given this weird economic climate?
I still think that there are some very good opportunities, even in this climate. Personally, I invest a lot of my money trading on my own. I have a full-time employee or independent contractor actually that trades professionally, and we trade options, and we trade stocks, just like back in the day trading days. But when you're dealing with large sums of monies, you don't really have to see a very big increase or decrease in a stock to really make good money, because you're trading with very large amounts of cash. So especially when you look at stocks like Amazon, Google, those big dollar stocks, you can really take advantage of some of these opportunities. In a down market, in an up market, we trade whether the market is up, down, or going sideways. And so, but that takes a little bit more sophistication, I guess, for the average person. I guess what I would do is maybe invest in some real estate, maybe. Because there's going to be some opportunities with all of these mortgages and everything going back.
Yeah. Well, some of us are waiting for those opportunities. Now, with that, of course, Congress did pass, and this is where a lot of the debt came in, this PPP program, EDIL, and these loans. John, did you see your clients take advantage of, especially the small business, take advantage of the loan program offered through the Small Business Administration?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody and their dog applied for PPP loans. Whether, I think that was a little bit of a error in the program. Certainly, when the initial funding ran out so quickly, it was an indication. And of course, a lot of big companies got shamed into giving the money back. But I would say, I would think 100% of my clients probably applied for PPP loans.
Right. Yeah. Well, part of it looked like a loan, and part of it was like a grant. And so the thing is, the grants I don't have any problem with, because basically you spend it and it's forgiven, but as long as you follow those rules. The loans, they came with a sticker price, at least to us, with 3.75%. And this became the problem. How do you make more than 3.75% today without taking any risk? So without any risk, I'll go down to Tom Snell, who doesn't seem to want to take any risk. Okay, show me, how do we do better than 3.75% without taking any risk?
Hey, Nick, I just want to add something back to about the PPP loans. Almost every one of our clients did a loan too. I had one client call me and say he got a PPP loan for $430,000, and he wasn't sure what he was going to spend the money on, because his operation continued. I mean, he played by all the rules. He said, I'm taking the attitude that it's going to have to be paid back.
Right.
But I believe he told me that was a 1% loan. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was very favorable terms. But his attitude was, I'm going to have to pay it back. But in all likelihood, based on the rules that I've seen, he probably won't have to. Also, chair a small charity. And we took out a PPP loan to keep our doors open. We run a building, an operation to house all the other nonprofits in Lee County, and we run an event venue. So we've been totally shut down on the event venue, and not too many of our tenants are even coming into the building. Fortunately, they're continuing to pay their rent. So I've got small and large people are taking advantage of these loans. I think our charity made an $8,100 loan request.
Right.
To get us through this time period.
Yeah.
But we had a 72-year-old housekeeper as well, and we just immediately sent her home when all the older people started dying from the virus. We just sent her home, and we've continued her paycheck. I wonder if we did her a disservice. We probably should have laid her off, and she could get the extra $600
$600 a week unemployment. Right.
Yeah, but we discussed that with her, and she didn't want to do that because she was not in a position where she thought she could go out and find another job, and she was afraid we wouldn't hire her back. And so we said, well, we'll continue to pay you, but do not come to work. Right. Now, in your case, you've got this massive PPP loan, and you're trying to figure out what to do with the money to get the return.
Right.
Well, I think if you need it for your business, hopefully your business is returning more than 3.75%. But if you got to put it in the market or something, I would be a little bit more cautious about either spending the money, either return it or put it into something that's very conservative, because if you don't need the money, you don't need it. Right. And if you need it, you certainly don't need to be investing it. You need to spend it on your employees. So
right. Yeah. And right now the situation is it's almost like we're parking it. We don't need it. Now what? Is kind of it. And I'm looking for, is there going to be a downturn? Is there going to be a point in time we're actually going to need it? Or are we just going to have to return it because frankly, our business is in a situation that really doesn't need it. So it's almost like every week I got to figure out what we're going to do with this stuff because it's a loan. Not a grant. Yeah.
Well, the accountant will have to advise you about whether or not you can convert it into a grant. But my understanding is if you're spending the money doing the things they've told you to do to keep your business operational, you're not going to have to pay it back.
Well, part of it is a grant and part of it was a loan. I did check. We got part loan, part grant to pay the employees. So we're going to use that money to pay the employees. Part loan, which sits there, and it was a large amount. And I'm going like, okay, great. But in terms of a personal service business, which has operating cash flow, and at least right now, nothing bad is happening. It's almost like I'm not sure what to do. I did check. We could prepay it because the thing is the way they structured it, payments don't take place for another year. And then we have to start making these monthly payments back. Okay. And I'm going like, okay, but in the meantime, what do you do with all that cash? Matthew, have you run into that with your clients that have taken the loans and the grants, or have they taken loans and grants?
Yeah, yes. I have one client specifically gave me a call and told me she received 585,000 and she was trying to figure out what to do with it. And I'm thinking to myself, how do you not know what to do with it? I mean, if you're taking the PP money to, pay wages and you have the money already to pay wages, then take that money and pay the wages with it.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of clients that are also independent contractors, and with the independent contractors, they were just giving them enough to cover the wages.
Mm-hmm.
So for most of my clients, they're probably all of their money is probably going to be considered grants.
Right. Yeah. See, the problem that we have is that our business specifically is affected. We have about a 1 year lag to the market. Seriously, a whole year lag. So it's almost like something happens bad today. It'll take us a year before we're affected by it because of the nature of what we do, funding people's retirement plans. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing. Right now, we're funding for 2019. Okay. And all of our clients, here's what they told us. Almost every one, I get reports every week. We're going to wait, perhaps even till the end of the year to make our final contribution to the plan, because they extended it all to the end of the year. Usually it's September 15th. Then I know who has it, who doesn't have it, et cetera. Okay. Well, with that being said, then for this year, setting up plans for this year, I don't even know until the end of the year and early next year. And my clients don't know if they've made money or lost money until the end of the year. So we lag a whole year. In other words, I go, tell me what the economy is going to be like in December. So in the meantime, we took the loan money. I told my partner, because you have to make these decisions, take it or not. I said, take it. Okay, well, the interest rate wasn't that bad, 3.75. I couldn't get one. I don't even know how they set those rates. Okay, and I said, park it, and then we're just going to wait and see what happens. I don't know what else. And see, that could be the problem also with your client. They take 585,000, and they go, okay, but I don't know if they have a lag, if the recession hits them on a lag or not. So it's really to me, it's kind of a real tough situation. For those people who have just joined us, we're with John Power, CPA in Bismarck, North Dakota. Tom Snell, who's an attorney also in Sanford, North Carolina. And we have Matt Jennings, a enrolled agent, and currently in Las Vegas. But also, Matthew, tell us a little bit about yourself, because every time I beam in on you, I go, well, is he in California? Is he in Florida? Is he in Las Vegas now? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I am a Marine. Hoorah! I served in the Gulf War. But as far as my designations are, I have an MBA in finance, some doctoral credits toward the finance, and some credits toward the doctorates in finance. I have some law school credits as well. I'm a board certified in estate planning. I'm a registered financial consultant. I'm also certified as a trust specialist. So my specialty is to use the law, the tax laws, to my clients' greatest advantage, and get them into the lowest possible tax bracket allowed by law. And generally with a lot of the strategies that we're using, we're generally able to get people in the single digit tax rates, somewhere in between 3 to 7% on income tax. We work very hard to avoid estate tax and gift tax and generation skipping transfer tax. And so, that's, I pride myself in that, being able to do that, because again, I just feel like, the tax system, is broken, has been broken for a long time. When you have, clients that, you have income is taxed. That same income that's already been taxed is taxed again when you buy something, taxed again when you sell something. And oh, by the way, they won't let you rest in peace, because they're really going to hit you big when you die. So very unfair. And, being the Marine I am, I'm just, I feel that my obligation is not only just to protect, the threats, the enemies, both foreign and domestic, but, taxation can be an enemy as well, especially for people that aren't well versed, in this space. And I just see a lot of horror stories, with people not being able to pay their taxes, not being able to send their kids to college because they have a huge tax bill. And let's not forget those people that just fall behind by the time they get hit with the penalties and interest. Oh my God, how do you catch up?
Yeah, how do you climb out of the deep hole? Yeah, it's a big problem. I totally agree with you on that. It's draconian. John, tell us a little about who you are and what you do to our audience.
Sure. As you mentioned, I'm a CPA. I'm also a certified tax strategist. Big part of my practice is tax planning for closely held businesses and owners of those businesses. Also, where people have like one-time events where they're selling assets, real estate or a business. Much like Matthew was talking about. It's interesting. 1% of the tax code discusses what's taxable, and 99% of it discusses deductions, credits, and exemptions. So, we try to focus on the 99% and help people, significantly reduce their income taxes, 25, 50% or more.
Right. Yeah. Tom, tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
I live in North Carolina, and I'm a benefit consultant with One Digital. We're one of the fastest growing benefit consulting firms in the nation. And my job primarily is to work with the business owners and the HR people to try to improve benefits, drive down cost, help engage employees, make benefits simpler to take advantage of, to use. Insurance is kind of one of those things where nobody reads their contract unless something gets denied, and then they want you to show them, why you're not paying the claim or why the carrier's not paying the claim. So we try to take some of the mystery and misunderstanding out of health insurance and other employee benefits. And then I've kind of started focusing on executive compensation, because I'm talking with all these benefit owners anyway, and I used to refer that business out, but now I'm starting to talk about executive compensation and carve out benefits, things that you can do for your key employees or folks that you're having a hard time attracting. Like, I'm working with an infusion company and they're having a hard time attracting pharmacists. So we're creating a plan that'll make their employment there a lot more attractive. So, a lot of it's controlling costs, but the fun part is all the other stuff. So health insurance is always, there's never any good news around it. Your rates are going up again.
Your rates are going up.
So, we're actually making some great strides in the captive arena. Health insurance captives are actually on a big comeback right now. Reference-based pricing, where you pay claims based on a percent of Medicare. I mean, if a hospital will accept 100% of Medicare, why would they not accept 140% from your plan?
Interesting.
So, we're working in those kind of areas to try to bring a little bit more common sense to healthcare cost.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So the thing is, since John, you spent a lot of time also in the tax area, they just passed a new Secure Act, which I was just going through the other day. But that's just one of a lot of legislation that comes out of our friends in Washington, D.C. So my question to you, and you're in Bismarck, North Dakota, how do you keep up with all these changes and all these minuscule details that come out of Washington, D.C.? How do you keep up with all this stuff?
It's always a challenge, of course. I've been doing it for 40 years, so that helps a little bit. You do a lot of reading. You attend webinars, continuing education. I'm active in a couple tax planning organizations, and so we discuss things there. But nobody can ever be up to date on 100% of them. I was exchanging emails yesterday with a woman who's probably one of the best tax planners I've ever met. She just excels at it, and it came up in the course of a conversation about the 100% charitable deduction limit in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "When did that come into place? Did I miss something?" And I said, "Yeah, well, yeah, it was in the I think it was in the CARES Act."
Mm-hmm.
So it's no matter how much you try, you're going to miss something.
Yeah.
We're just human.
Yeah, see, my solution is I work in a very tiny area and I don't work outside of it. I just tell people I work here and don't ask me questions beyond that. But I'm just curious how other people do it, because I look through this stuff. I'm going, how do you keep up with all that stuff? Matthew, how do you keep up with all the changes that are coming out of Washington, D.C.? What do you do to keep up with all this stuff?
Quite frankly, I don't.
Okay, so you're like me. I don't keep up with you.
Einstein basically said the truly intelligent person doesn't know everything in their head, but they know how to get the information.
Right.
So, I keep things on a need to know basis.
Yep.
But, my thing is in the space that I deal with, you have all these rules for taxation. But if you're working with a high net worth client, my objective is to take them into a space where they're not subject to U.S. taxation. And so if they're not subject to U.S. taxation, they don't need to know those rules that are changing, because it doesn't affect them. So, I'm that Bruce Lee. I mean, don't get hit. So how do you not get hit? You don't be there when the punch comes in. So when all of these changes are coming through, we're not there. We're not in that space to get hit, because we're not subject to U.S. Tax jurisdiction, because we have, we're dealing with foreign trust, and we're dealing in, foreign insurance. And a good thing about us is that a lot of this we do out of Puerto Rico. So our clients they get all of the benefits of the foreign stuff, but they also get the reassurance that they're still dealing in a space, in a domestic space, because it's Puerto Rico. So that kind of takes all of the fear out of dealing with, places like, Singapore, Bermuda,
Sure.
And all those different places. So it's just fantastic for me.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a whole different tax structure over there. It's still part of our Commonwealth, so you have legal protection. Tom, how do you keep up with all these changes in the law? What do you do to keep up with all this stuff?
Well, like John, I'm required to take continuing legal education. I'm required to take continuing insurance education. Our company does a webinar every Monday afternoon around compliance. So it's a lot to keep up with. I read a lot. I'm going to be doing private placement insurance this weekend, but if there's a new tax law that comes out, I'll probably spend the next weekend reading that.
Okay, well, since everybody's looking at new stuff, I'll throw a little zinger out for today. My wife will kill me for this when she goes, she's a piece of smart on this stuff. The Malta Pension Trust, have you ever encountered the animal? This is before you Google it, Tom.
I was just going to write it down.
Okay, write it down. The Malta Pension Trust. John, in your circles of tax planning and tax strategists, has anybody discussed the advantages and disadvantages of the Malta Pension Trust? Have you seen that animal?
I've seen it. I've looked at it just very briefly. It's a wild concept.
Okay, all right. Okay, so you and I concur on that. Matthew, in your circles, have you come across or stumbled upon the Malta Pension Trust? Has that made
it's a new one for me, and I'm going to be looking that up too.
Okay, yeah, you can actually Google it. I usually say Google Malta Pension Trust Florida Bar article, which appeared, I think, in January of 2018. It was quite interesting. Opened up a lot of eyes because I'd never heard of it, and then all of a sudden this creature came rolling out of Malta, and I was going, oh, this is very interesting. Tom, have you seen that in North Carolina? Have you seen Malta Pension Trust?
Are you saying Malta?
Yeah, like the country of Malta. There's a little island called Malta, in the Mediterranean, and only tax, I don't know, geeks could dream this stuff up. And the thing is, the multi-pension trust had a lot of, how do you say, attraction for high net worth individuals, perhaps, or people that want to avoid capital gains, perhaps. But to me, it looks to be a pretty sophisticated play. Again, I work in this little narrow area. I read a lot of the area, but I go, wait, I'm just going to work in this area because, I don't want to get trampled on by something I don't know. And I was just curious if you come across that at all.
If I recall correctly, it takes advantage of some provisions in the tax treaty between the United States.
That is absolutely correct. And the tax treaties technically override the code. Yes, Tom.
Right.
I was waving goodbye, not asking to speak. So I apologize. I've got to bow out. I've got a deadline this afternoon to work on a project.
Oh, okay. Well, I do too, and so we're going to be done in about the next 10 minutes. But thanks for coming, Tom. And Google multi-pension trust, and we'll give you something to look at tonight. Right. And
we'll good to meet your two other guests. I hope we'll see them again.
Okay. We'll see you next time. Okay. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so the thing is, I was just very curious because I have not played in the area. I just looked at it, and there are some things that are out there that. Okay, another thing that's hit our desk, and I have not opined one way or the other on, but it doesn't look too good. Restricted property trust. John, has that hit your area at all in North Dakota? They call it the restricted property trust.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those. It's basically a new play on Section 79, which the IRS has never really liked how Section 79 was being used. The restricted property trust tweaks that a little bit by putting a forfeiture provision in. I think basically the way it works, if you have to make at least 5 years of premium payments. If you don't, you forfeit whatever you paid to a charity that's identified at the beginning, and that addresses some of the concerns that the IRS has raised. That's my take on it.
Oh, okay, all right. Matthew, have you come across, or has that hit your table yet? The restricted property trust?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, all it has is hit our table. We looked at it, and the problem I've seen with the minute you use certain terminology like 419, 79, and I've read all the cases I think that were published from the tax court in 419, they show you every way you cannot win. They show you no way you can. None. In other words, it's almost like I did a 419 plan and I lose because it's a 419 plan. And here's the problem I have with it. They put 419 in the code for a reason. I mean, it is in the Internal Revenue Code, 419 AF6, 419 AF5, 419 plans. And then there's almost no way you can possibly do it correctly. So I go, okay, so it's in the code, but no possible way of doing it correctly. So it's always boggled my mind, and I just stayed away from it because I'm going, there was never a case I have found no cases that were positive to say, okay, this is the way you do it right.
I looked at the 419 plans, many years ago also, sure, and in quite a bit of detail. And one of the difficulties that I ran into, and I pointed it out to one of the promoters one time, is they all said everybody else was doing it wrong.
You're absolutely right.
Trying to do some due diligence on it.
Right.
How do you know who's doing it right? And
right.
And when everybody says every other promoter is doing it wrong, so it turned out they were all right. They were doing it wrong.
Right. Well, apparently they were all doing it wrong.
Yeah.
They were all right on that part, and I never implemented one after 37 years of practice. A lot of them came by, I can't figure out how to do it right, and I haven't had anything that showed you how to do it right. They did the same thing to me, but mine is right because of X, and I go, well, when the case law comes down, it says you're right, then I'll go ahead and implement one. So I was kind of lucky. I guess I just stayed away from it. But it always boggled my mind that none of them got it right. And I'm going like, isn't there some way possibly that you could do a 419 AF6 plan correctly? But apparently not. Which then why did they bother to pass the law? I just always had a problem with that. And I think when I looked at the restricted property trust, they embedded 419 concepts in. Well, the minute you do that, that's like embedding with a coronavirus, and then say, hey, it's okay for you. I go, I didn't think it was okay, so I just, for me, I just stayed away from it, and I see the restricted property trusts. I go, it's based on a 419 or a Section 79 chassis. One, the IRS doesn't like. The other one, you can't possibly win, and it's always really bothered me. So I just stay away from it, and look for a less restricted environment today. But you have had some success with these discs, and I found that to be quite interesting. And those are outbound transactions. I love the concept of the disc. Can you tell us a little bit more about the disc, John?
Sure. And I see disc as a provision of the tax code. There's been incentives for export business in the tax code for many, many, many years. Different iterations. The IC disc has been around now for several years. I don't remember how many now. But essentially what it lets you do is, to make it real simple, it lets you convert ordinary income, what would be taxed as ordinary income, to dividend income, which is taxed at a lower tax rate. So you're going from 39, 37, maybe less with the 199A deduction, down to tax income that's going to be taxed between 20 and 24%. So you're getting a tax rate advantage, and it can be very significant, especially when we had higher tax rates. Right. We did one for a client last year that had an IC disc but hadn't taken full advantage of it. And when we went and looked at it and took full advantage of it, they ended up getting refunds of about $900,000. So it can be really, their business was almost 100% export. So that's not going to be probably a typical case. Right. But there's a lot of businesses that do export business and may not think about it. Right. Because it doesn't have to be that I ship directly to a buyer in China, but if I'm selling to a place and I know the product is going overseas, those indirect sales can also qualify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And see, the thing is, this is where I think that people do need to work with specialists, because see, my goal, somebody had something like that, I would just refer them to you, and I'm not really interested in learning all that, because frankly, it takes too long. It's very inefficient. And then even if you try to do it, chances are you're going to make a mistake unless you've done a lot of it. So it's just easier to refer out. Now let's go to Puerto Rico, since apparently you've had some experience, Matthew. And Puerto Rico, from what I understand, has a whole different CAT code and all this other stuff. How do you happen to get involved in the using instruments down in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, you're right. They have their own revenue code, surprisingly, and I thought it was very interesting when the opportunity came up, because I thought I was going to have to do a lot of this foreign PPLI, and like I said, Bermuda, Barbados, different countries like that. But when the opportunity came up that that you have the Puerto Rican space, where you have insurance companies that are domiciled in Puerto Rico that are treated as foreign insurance companies, I was like, this would be very, 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 very comforting, for clients to know that they can get the same benefits without having to worry about being in foreign territory, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so I took advantage of that. And you don't really have to have a lot of net worth. You only need to have 2 million, whereas traditionally we wouldn't touch clients with foreign PPLI unless they were 50 million, 100 million and up. And so this will allow us to really help a lot more people. Mm-hmm. I'm just very excited about it.
Yeah, and explain to people a little bit about PPLI, because a lot of people are not familiar with it. I think the regular public missed the class in PPLI. So tell us a little bit about PPLI.
Well, private placement life insurance is what is called, and it tends to have a little bit more flexibility than the traditional policies. However, the domestic policies only allow you to diversify, and I think 20 something mutual funds and maybe some REITs. But when you deal with the foreign insurance companies, they play by a different set of rules. You can basically have a custom policy, and that custom policy could have multiple insureds. It can have, multiple types of assets, put into the policy, such as real estate. I mean, you got stocks and bonds. I mean, company stock. And so, it gets very, very creative and very, very customized because, again, they have a different set of, rules to comply with. So,
Yep.
And
so,
then, I always thought trusts were the secret sauce. And they are in a sense, but nothing really beats, life insurance. And so when you're dealing with, high net worth individuals, you're gonna really actually have a combination of strategies, because there's not one strategy that can, there's not one strategy that will be able to deal with income tax, state tax, all those other taxes all at the same time. So you're going to have a combination of trust. You're going to have some insurance. You're going to maybe have some LLCs or some partnerships. So you're going to have a combination of things when you're thinking of global estate planning for these clients.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I see it's going. And there's a lot of sophisticated planning. And with that, I'd like to thank John Power, CPA in Bismarck, North Dakota, to be on IBM TV. And I love his conversation. IC Disc. He certainly woke my eyes up. I missed that class. And of course, PPL with Matthew Jennings. I missed that class also, Private Placement Life. But these are great things, great tools to know, and great to hear you guys on IBM TV. And hopefully we'll see people back